Hello and welcome, traveler, to the second episode of Die Lucky. I am your dungeon master and soul of Surrai, Ila. A very special welcome if you're finding us thanks to Dan and Joe over at Discography Discussion. Hi, Dan and Joe. I'm trying to keep this intro pretty short, so here's a couple of really quick bullet points. I wanted to give a special shout out to Megan, our very first patron. She subscribed as a patron early enough to get her character in the background of this episode, as well as upcoming episodes. Think of town establishing shots as a kind of Where's Waldo for patrons and Easter eggs. And the last thing I want to get out of the way before we get started is the exposition train. I had some people reach out and tell me that they didn't understand what the deal with the exposition train was. So basically, the exposition train exists for when people who are at the table but not necessarily in the scene are contributing to the scene or the ambiance of what's happening. So welcome again, traveler, to the second episode of Die Lucky. Previously, in Surrai, Ricketts Gumar was summoned to a great quest by a letter written long ago and stored in a shadow box on the wall of a bar in a small town called Pallid Falcon, just west of Fell Hollow. The letter knew him by name, and the turn of events of that night are tied up with emotions over the mysterious death of his sister. Our story now moves across the continent to a heavily wooded area home to many trappers, hunters, hermits, a large city in the trees, and our second hero. Hollis has suffered and occasionally enjoyed visions where they speak directly with Cyrell the Crone, the level-headed and patient leader figure of the Grand Coven. The Crone, cryptically and ubiquitously, warns of finishing the ritual before the fall of Vind. Cyrell is said to still hold station above the Necrolame vortex, harnessing the time dilation above the portal in combination with their own timeless body to fight back the endless and ever-surging hordes of undead trying to crawl out of the Necrolame portal to Surrai. We are now going to cut directly to our session as the second member of the new called Coven is summoned by circumstance to save Surrai.
You live pretty close to Post Square, not even a day travel, like, it'd be like a jaunt. Go on a long walk, get there, do some business, leave. You're a hunter-gatherer type and you mostly stick to your own stuff and you sleep in hammocks above in the trees so that the owlbears don't get you at nighttime. It's a pretty good life you live. And right now, you're sitting on a shoreline with someone who you feel like is like your best friend. And y'all are having just a nice, relaxed day hanging at the beach. What's your outfit look like?
I've got on a silk sunrobe and a pair of cotton knee-length shorts.
Good times. Nice. The person sitting next to you has a really large brimmed sun hat. And it's pretty fabulous. They're wearing a loose fitted, printed shirt that has little bluebirds all over it. And they're also wearing some board short length shorts, but they're kind of on the looser side. Their feet are in like really simple flip-flops and their toenails are the prettiest shade of robin's egg blue, almost turquoise. This pedicure is on point. As you look over, you realize that the person sitting next to you is actually the Crone. And they say, "How are things, Hollis?"
They're exhausting.
Tiresome is gonna pile on really soon here. You have some things you have to do. And we've talked about them before. But now we know that you must unlock the castle before the moons shine like this. And if you look up, you can see it's not a sunny day. All three of the moons are full. And it's so bright, it looks like daylight. The red, the blue, and the purple moon shine down and create this beautiful white light that is just daytime without all the yellow. And the crone looks at you again and says, "And you must shut the door before darkness falls."
So I unlock the castle. Or the moons are like this. I shut the door before darkness falls.
That is what they said to you. You have enough time to ask one question here. So if you want to ask your holy patron a question, now is the time.
How far must I go?
Further than any have before. And you wake up in your hammock, and the sun is just starting to edge over the horizon. So, it's time to get your day started. That was a really intense dream. You've had dreams where you've hung out with crone before, and they're almost always wearing a large brim hat. You never see anything past the upper lip. Really nice beauty mark on the one side, thick, full lips, deep, resonating voice. Always the same. But they're never going to show you their eyes. It's time for you to walk around and check your traps and do some berry foraging. So can I have you go ahead and roll me a survival check? Alright, with a 17, in your traps that you left overnight, you find one really large hare, especially large for how north you stayed tonight. A small rabbit, and a fox got into one of your traps as well. The fox is still alive, though. You could probably let him go. And you also find, roll a d4.
3.
So you also find 5 days worth of berries. Good, hearty, not gonna go bad for 5 days berries. You can put those on your inventory if you want. As it is, you've got a fox to deal with, and a large rabbit and a small rabbit to skin and prep for preserving so that you can bring them to town.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna let the fox go because it's really foxes and I didn't want that karma. But the rabbits are pretty useful, so I'm gonna skin them and prep them and get them ready.
Yeah, this is stuff that you do almost every day. You're really used to it. You do it, Red Dead Redemption style, where you grab the skin at the end and just rip. And the little one, it happens real easy. Can you go ahead and roll me another survival check as you pick up the larger hare?
Okay, so 16.
There's like a lump on the back of this hare. It's pretty large, and if you wiggle your thumb, it kind of moves. But it's pretty rigid. Like, it's not tumor, it's square.
Yeah, I take my knife and I slice around, like right up to the side of it, and I squeeze it out.
Yeah. That was inside that rabbit. When you pull it out, it's all, like, covered with blood and gore. But, comes out of the rabbit. So now you have this thing.
Yeah, this bloody thing, so I'm gonna go and wash it off. Figure
Yeah.
out what it is.
Totally. So you wash it off, and you notice that there's a symbol of the crone on it. Found the morning after you had this really intense dream. Very memorable. We have this item now.
Well, I'll take some time and I'll detect magic, see if there's anything that I can find out, but I'm still gonna bring it into town, I think.
Yeah, when you cast Detect Magic on it, it's definitely magical, but you can't really discern what it does. But it seems to be pretty legit. It's a thing. It's supposed to do something, but, like, for some reason you can't grasp onto what its purpose is, no matter how hard you detect magic at this item.
I just keep thinking about the castle and the moons.
So you're gonna take it to town?
Yeah.
Okay. Postwarm itself is this treetop society, and there's bridges leading between shops that are into carved hollows of trees and built into structures around the trees, and it's multi-leveled and very dizzying if you're not accustomed to it. You are very accustomed to it.
Just Tarzaning around up in
Yeah, you're totally used to it. You're like, this is my jam. This is where I live in the wild. You guys are civilized here. This is more civilization than I need. The idea of stone and mortar buildings is too much. You're very connected to this nature thing. So you go into town, and the local trinket salesman greets you. He's seen you going past a couple times before. He's probably bought a rabbit off of you at some point. He says, "How's it going today? Welcome."
Hi there, sir. I've seen you around town.
I am around all the time. So can I help you with today?
I just have a question. Have you ever seen anything quite like this? Any symbols that you've seen in your time?
I mean, that's obviously the symbol of the crone, but that in particular, he like shuffles off. He's a half-elf guy, but he's pretty old. Hunched over. He looks human. He's kind of so old and ragged. The only reason you see that he's a half-elf because he's got like the pointy ears still, but like he's lost all of that ethereal dexterity from the other half of his genetics. And so he shuffles off. He looks over through this bookcase and he pulls this book off the shelf. He flips it open and flips a page. Goes back a couple of pages and he says, "You have in your hand a trinket made by Morakir himself." Backstory, Morakir was the actual scryer. The scryer had a knack and was told to make trinkets in the middle of battle to toss at enemies. That was his thing. He would infuse a magical object, toss it off, and then infuse another one, and just endlessly have grenade-style stuff by pulling things out of his robes.
Just objects.
Just
cursed,
objects.
pretty much?
Not cursed, but like they have one purpose. They do the spell the one time, and they either fizzle out of existence or they end up back in his robe. That's
the
how.
physical object?
Yeah, the physical
Like,
objects.
you can't find any traces of
Right,
his
right.
weapons. And,
Well, you can
weapons,
find
kind of.
people have his trinkets because there's just hundreds of them. They're just everywhere. A lot of the time, they just don't work quite right, or you can't figure out what the trigger word was for it, so it's just like a pretty thing. There's a lot of kitsch. He says that is definitely made by Morakir himself.
Okay, so I'd like to ask him about the riddle. What he thinks about it, if he's ever heard anything. Maybe.
So your riddle, you must unlock the castle before the moons shine like this, and you must shut the door before darkness falls. Roll me an insight check.
7 plus 8.
You have 8 insight? Oh my
Well,
god.
It's got a square around it.
Yeah, that's because you have double proficiency in that. You're all about that insight. You know how people feel all the time. He looks kind of uncomfortable. He says, I mean, there's some old theories on that, but it's best not to talk about it. The book does say that these type of things are supposed to go straight to the Silmir Library.
Do you know how to get to that library?
Of course, love. The teleportation circle's in the center of town. If you show that to the people at the telestrator will probably send you there with no charge.
Great. Thank you very much. So I'm gonna...
Off to the telestrator?
Yeah, I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for
I'm
stopping.
gonna leave.
Did you want to pick up any healing potions, or do you want to go straight to the telestrator?
I'm gonna go straight there.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like along the way I can get it.
Alright.
I need.
So in Postwarum, they don't do timed telestrator things like they do in the bigger cities. When someone needs to go, they do a check, and then they send the person. When you get to the telestrator, they say, so where are you headed?
I need to go to the library.
And you show them the just like
the
this.
library, but I'm really trying not to break it.
They kind of like turn their head and they go, all right. So they go over and they do some fiddling on the thing on the floor, and they mark a line and shake their head and erase it off and move it over about an inch, and then they turn around and they move this line from over here, and they're drawing all over this thing with chalk, and they stand up and they look at it and they go, yep, that'll do it. And they walk over to this podium, they slide this lid up into the podium, and they press their hands onto, it's like a dome, but just the top part, kind of like a computer screen, but it's a crystal, and their eyes roll into the back of their head, and then they come back and they're like, all right, we're good. If you want to go ahead and step on the teleporter, I'll send you on your way.
It's gonna make me feel sick at all.
Some people do experience a slight hiccup when they land, but I mean, for the most part, it's kind of like getting hit by a cold breeze.
Okay, yep, I'm gonna go.
The telestrator stands back, double checks their work, and says, fair and raw, and the whole world around you gets blinding white bright. And then when you open your eyes, you're in a stone building filled with bookcases, and there are 4 other people in the room.
Thanks so much for being here. Please like and subscribe. Maybe even leave a comment. Can't stress enough how helpful those actions help other people find Die Lucky in the sea of endless content that is the internet. And I wanted to shout out Megan, our very first patron, one more time. Be sure to keep an eye out for her and her kiddos in future episodes of Die Lucky. We will be back very soon with our 3rd episode where we meet Calder, barely know her, of Corla Falls. In the meantime, be sure to follow us on all the things and stay well.